Hello everyone, good afternoon, and for once, instead of hitting the hard stuff of Lucozade, I accidentally picked up Gatorade instead. Blueberry. So, I might have just avoided being arrested for walking under the influence of Lucozade, but now I might be in trouble with this blueberry stuff. But of course you didn't come here to find out if I'm about to get a criminal record or what I drink. No, I wanted to make another video about Insulate Britain wankers again. And the recent attack in Liverpool, of course. So, regarding the attack in Liverpool first, obviously I've made a lot of my points pretty clear in there, but I think it's about time I call that story out for what it really is. So, what the media has been doing recently with these lone wolves, or lone wolves, sorry for the bad grammar. Anyway, what they're doing with these Islamic lone wolves, because that's now what it turns out this man was. I mean, I was pretty skeptical when I made that update video. And it turns out I was right to be skeptical, because the media thinks we're fucking stupid, bluntly speaking. And there's probably going to be a lot more swearing than that, I'm afraid. So be prepared for it. Anyway, the media thinks we're stupid because they're trying to sell the idea that this Muslim man had converted to Christianity. Just to make it look like, you see, it wasn't Islam, it was somebody who was a Christian. No. I didn't buy it back then, and I sure as shit don't buy it now. So, media, if you want to keep selling us the lie that it was Christianity, well, actually, no, I should be straight up with this, shouldn't I? This isn't going to offend me personally, because I'm not Christian. I am more of an atheist more than anything else, or someone who doesn't believe in the aspect of religion. However, I cannot confirm or deny it, but I definitely know I don't associate with any religion. So it doesn't really offend me that much. However, there are going to be devout Christians who are going to be seriously pissed off that you decided to associate this Muslim man with Christianity. And I can already smell a few people coming out of the woodwork to saying, not all Muslims are terrorists. And to that I say, I've never said anything like that. I may say that a lot of terrorism in Europe is committed by Islam, but not once have I ever said during my entire 2-3 years here, on this account or the old, that all Muslims are terrorists. Nothing of the sort. There are some pretty peaceful Muslims out there. People who do not take the teachings of Islam seriously. And just to make clear, it's predominantly Sunni Islam that is the biggest problem here, as they are the ones that take it the most seriously and believe in all the 72 virgins, or is it 82 virgins? I can't ever get the number down. Anyway, that's the one that teaches them, if you do all this, that and the other, you'll be given like 82 virgins or what have you. It's the teachings that tell them to basically go and make women their sex slaves, that it's okay to beat your wife, and that it's perfectly okay for somebody like Muhammad to marry a 7-year-old girl. But it's not to do with the religion itself. It's to do with the fact that the media is lying about what this man was. And just to remind them that they are supposed to be telling us the whole truth, not what they want us to believe is the truth. And you are basically defaming a whole load of Christians by saying that he converted to Christianity, trying to imply that he had actually become a Christian. And you know what's also funny? Section 2 of the 2006 Fraud Act. Fraud by false representation. You are actually breaking the law, mainstream media. So take that into account next time you decide to fucking lie about that shit. Now, I've got that out of my system. Oh, actually no, there is one other thing. The Muslim Council of Britain decided to get their piece in to praise David Perry, the man who risked his life and lost an ear to stop hundreds dying, including a load of Muslims in the hospital. People who work in the hospital that are Muslim. And I suspect that was their main motive, the Muslim Council of Britain, because obviously it helps solidify what they're doing and it makes them look good in the eyes of the British public. But it's merely just a smokescreen for what lies below. Because any country that has even a shred of common sense would never have a Council of Britain associated with a religion. No country worth their salt would ever have a Muslim Council of Inter-Country here. Because they know full well that religion and politics do not mix well. It's kind of like having a powder keg in a gas-filled mine, and then you have some idiot who goes into that mine and lights a match. Guess how that's going to end? And it's not going to end with a nice, pleasant surprise for the man who's holding the flame up, let me tell you. So, the fact we even have a Muslim Council of Britain in the first place just shows how far we've fallen to what we were in the past. Okay, Islam is not responsible for 2 world wars. Let's be clear on that much. However, it does not change the fact that multiculturalism and diversity and inclusion has categorically failed us. They always talk about the positives of bringing in cheap labour and what these people do when they integrate with society. But nobody ever talks about the negatives. How Islam is basically trying to assimilate us into their culture rather than the wankers who are coming over here should be integrating into ours. I'm not saying that Islam should be outlawed. Far from it. I am merely saying that we should be able to have our beliefs, and our beliefs should be respected and accepted by anyone who comes into this country. However, as Nigel Farage has quite rightly said, we at the moment are too full of people who hate us and everything we stand for. That's why we have a fundamental problem. It is because of the fact that we have these people from the quote-unquote religion of peace who act like they're all nice and lovey-dovey, or in some cases not even bother with that. Take a look at David Amos. The guy was fucking stabbing a desk before he attacked David himself. And Hope Not Hate Nick Lowe's actually thought that the far right met his death with joy and glee. Fuck off. I know I'm going off on a tangent here, but as somebody who is at worst right-wing of politics, and for the most part I like to think of myself as centre, slightly leaning to the right. But as a person who is more centre-right than far-right, I can safely say I did not meet his death with glee and joy, especially considering he was supporting Brexit. I wonder what would have happened if it was a Remain MP or Labour MP. Would he still say the same tripe? Somehow I don't think so. But we all know Nick Lowe's is a complete and utter dickhead, bluntly speaking, and that Hope Not Hate has not got a shred of decency or credibility in all of them combined. I've talked enough about all that shit, and the Liverpool attack. And yeah, I think what. Oh, actually, no. On a side note, you know what's funny? Jamal, when he received his fundraiser for having a bottle of water poured over him by an English kid. The English one, of course, ended up having his life threatened by a group of Muslim men. But more to the point, Jamal raised over £100,000 for his fundraiser when his life wasn't even in danger. Yet, after 24, 36, 48 hours, whatever, David Perry, sorry for calling your name wrong, anyway, David Perry has not even raised half that in his fundraiser. Now, given it hasn't closed yet, so there is still time, but that should also, on a side note, show you exactly how fair and how fair we are, how equal we are, obvious sarcasm, where you can be an Englishman who does the most patriotic thing for his country. He would willingly give his life to defend his country, and yet you won't receive that much. But somebody like Jamal, who merely only had a bottle of water poured over him, and was told, I'm going to waterboard you, when it wasn't even waterboarding, to be brutally honest. It's not even remotely close to waterboarding. Waterboarding is what's affiliated with, like, prison of war torture camps and terrorist interrogation, all that, like Guantanamo Bay and all that. But he can receive over 100 grand. Wasn't it like 140, 150 grand he ended up fucking receiving? Beggars belief. Okay, I really am done with that now. Let's now talk about the Insulate Britain wankers. So, those of you who have been tuning into that will notice that now, I think 9 activists have gone to prison for their crimes. To which I say, good. It's exactly what they deserve. Unfortunately, I only wish this was done sooner, and to say, these people even said that this tide will never be this high again, will you join us? They actually think of themselves as a high tide, which is cute. They think themselves high and mighty, which is even cuter, and they think that they're doing the public a cause, which is just fucking rich, when all they've actually been doing is pissing off the British public more than anything. These people, who are unrepentant, some of them, one of them was even categorically nailed to the post, as it were, saying that he would have to be jailed in order for this to be stopped, and that he would do it all again. If that does not tell you how inconsiderate these pricks are, then nothing ever will. The man who said this, I think he's forever solidified himself as another hated figure in the eyes of the British public. And he's not hated because he said something racist, or he did something stupid, or he would, I don't know, make some other small petty mistake. No, this guy is going to be hated because he would willingly endanger the lives of others. He would willingly endanger himself. I mean, who cares about that? But he would willingly endanger the motorists that are on the motorways. And that, to me, is just ridiculous and disgusting. The police should have done this ages ago. They should have done this like 4 weeks ago. And all of this, the charges wasn't even for blocking an emergency services vehicle. These charges were not based off breaching the Highway Code Act 1989. No, it was merely for a court injunction that was imposed on Insulate Britain to not do this, basically. to not block the roads. Which shows you how screwed up our justice system is when they're not even willing to put the other charges on as well, which they should have. And I'm sure there are going to be a lot of people, probably IB sympathisers, who will say, but you're just being too harsh. No, I'm not being too harsh, bluntly speaking. In fact, frankly, the fuckers should have gotten even more. They should be thankful, if anything, that the people who went on the M25 and willingly walked into oncoming lanes of traffic have not been killed as a result of their reckless, selfish and inconsiderate actions. You know, selfish as in the same thing that the people who think those who haven't had a shot of the antidote are. Or those that aren't willing to wear face nappies are. They are the ones that are really selfish because they're willing to put their own lives and others in danger just for a cause that is basically going to backfire full on in their face. And if I may be perfectly blunt, I didn't say this before, but I'm more than willing to say this now because I'm now starting to fully understand and see it for what it really is. This should be treated as terrorism. Full stop. Okay, it's not killing lives on the scale that bombers can kill on. I mean, there was one bombing, I think, was it in Kabul or something like that? Somewhere in the Middle East, I suspect, where thousands of people died in a single bomb attack. I appreciate that Insulate Britain is not quite on that level yet. But, and this is a big but, and no, I'm not talking about mine. Anyway, this is a big but. They are disrupting the country, which is something that obviously acts of terrorism would do. Acts of terrorism would not only endanger lives, it would disrupt the countries as well as try to sow fear. And okay, again, Insulate Britain aren't trying to sow fear, but again, I bring you back to the point. They are disrupting the country. They are stopping medical supplies and other such supplies from getting to where they need to be. They are stopping motorists from being able to undertake their daily activities in their daily routines. They are stopping children from getting to school. They are doing all sorts of damage to the country, and yet they fail to see it and think their cause is just. Which, as I said, I think is just absolutely hilarious. So we should hold these guys pretty much under the same level of contempt that we hold terrorism under. I think it should be called non-violent terrorism, but it is terrorism nonetheless, in my humble opinion. These people need to understand that, as I said before, they're not just playing with the lives of themselves, they're playing with the lives of other people. They have cost people jobs. They have cost people, well, perhaps they've messed around with the children so much that they've had to be excluded or expelled or whatever because of bad attendance. I don't know. It could be possible. That bit is speculation, but I do know that the interview part is fact, that people have missed job interviews. People have been late for work on the back of them. And one thing that I did find out before is that one woman even ended up partially paralysed because they were being transported to hospital with a fucking stroke. And yet these wankers wouldn't move out the way. The delays caused by those Insulate Britain terrorists caused that woman to be partially paralysed. I will stand on a limb and say that. Because that is what it is. And you can find that in one, I think it was a Sky News report I found that out in. The woman who ended up having a partial stroke. Or sorry, partial paralysis as a result of the stroke. And as I said, if it was just Insulate Britain putting their own lives in danger, I'd probably say, and I think a lot of people would say, who cares about them? But it's the fact that drivers are in danger. Children are potentially in danger of being kicked out of school. Kicked out of skills, that would be nice. Anyway, children are in danger of being kicked out of schools. People are losing their jobs or job interviews. People are suffering as a result of Insulate Britain. And for what? Climate change? If you want to be focusing on climate change, how about you deal with China? The people who are still going out of their way to use, those coal plants? Or these, is it power plants fueled basically by a shitload of coal? Go after them. Don't fucking ruin the lives of other people who are just trying to live out their life. It drives me mad at times. And it makes me, in some cases, want to cry because of the absolute ignorance. And to be perfectly blunt, how downright retarded some people can really be. Though, to be fair, that's almost an offence to retarded people. So I'll say sorry to them, just to be accountable to that much. But you know what's really funny? Do you know what's really, really funny? Actually, no, it's not. There are people in Insulate Britain, literally hours ago, who have said that they were warning of violence if they could not peacefully protest. That's right. And I'll link that article in particular in the description below for you all to see. They have threatened violence if they're not allowed to peacefully protest. And I say that with a certain feeling of anger, because what have I often said about these protests that go on, the two-tier policing and our corrupt establishment? I said I would never advocate for the violence, but if they don't do something about it, then violent revolution is looking like where it's going to go. And here we have Insulate Britain literally saying unequivocally that there will be violence if they can't protest. I'm willing to bet none of them have been arrested for this. Ironically, I haven't been arrested either, in their defence, if we're going to go down that route. But the point is, if these guys are willing to resort to violence, well, I feel sorry for the elderly people if they do. Anyway, if they resort to violence, all they will do, as if they haven't done it enough already, is completely vilify the British public. They will be completely looked on in contempt by the British people, as well as the establishment. Whenever I've been to you-know-whose protests in London and Manchester, nobody advocated for violence there. There may have been scuffles with the police on a couple of them, but generally they're usually started by infiltrators from the left wing, or they're started by the police themselves. The same police who still use a kid gloves approach for these Insulate Britain wankers. The same police that are willing to use a heavy-handed approach on anybody who is on the right wing of politics, who gets even slightly overexcited. They're willing to draw the batons and start hitting people. Yet with Insulate Britain, rather than like what I said they should do and give them one warning, and then if they don't comply, arrest them and drag them off the fucking road, they continue to use a kid gloves approach with these terrorists. And I will continue to call them terrorists from now on, because that is exactly what they are. They may not be terrorists, as I said, in the sense of sowing fear. They may not be terrorists in the sense of killing people on a large scale or trying to do it maliciously with bombs or guns or knives or vehicles. But they are nonetheless terrorizing the country. And that, in my humble opinion, I think is more than enough. If they're causing major disruption in our country, to label them terrorists. Just like the left wing likes to label other people racists and fascists and Islamophobes and homophobes. And on a side note, Islamophobe is not even a fucking word, but they were willing to put it in the dictionary. It's not even a phobia, because a phobia would imply an irrational fear of something. An irrational fear of Islam that has been known for their terrorism attacks as of late, that knowingly are intolerant of other religions. Oh, and I actually forgot this. I actually forgot this bit, this golden nugget here. Do you know what the punishment is for leaving Islam? Death. If you decide to leave Islam, or you go against the teachings of Islam, they'll kill you for it. So, I'd like to ask the mainstream media, how do you suppose he would go and bomb people if he's dead because Islam would willingly kill Muslims? Now, given I will compromise on this much, this is not a predominantly Islam country like, say, Saudi Arabia or India or its capital city of Bangladesh or Iraq or Afghanistan or Pakistan. However, just with that one point alone, I can completely discredit what the media have said regarding this bomber. I literally cannot believe I forgot that one crucial thing. And I've got to thank TR for it, because back when I did support him more actively, I did get educated on a few things, and I'm glad I still remember them. But if you defect from Islam, it's punishable by death. And I guarantee you, the quote-unquote friends he was with, the ones that have been arrested, if they are also in connection with him, would not have taken his defection kindly. In fact, they probably would have killed him. Or at the very least done something really nasty to him. So, mainstream media, how do you explain your way out of that one? I'd like to hear your response, but of course I suspect you never will, because you probably don't have an answer. Can anyone else answer it? He would be killed if he defected. He would not be able to carry out the bombing that he did. Well, he failed to do, actually. But anyway, he would not have been able to carry out his attack if he defected from Islam and converted to Christianity, because I guarantee you, Islam does have a burning hatred towards Christians. And ironically, they actually kill more of their own kin in their own religion because they're not willing to submit to the Sunni teachings of Islam. So as I said, mainstream media, explain your way out of that one. Do you hear the crickets? That's because I probably won't ever get a response from them. Checkmate. I'm willing to put my head on the chopping block for that. Check fucking mate. Which will further discredit the media, which I know they won't like one bit. But as for these Insulate Britain wankers, the fact that they would willingly do all this again, blocking the roads and what have you, preventing critical supplies from getting to where they need to be, or delaying such resources. And the fact that now one of their spokespeople is even saying that there will be violence if peaceful protests are not allowed, surely should explain to you what the real intentions of Insulate Britain is. The real intentions is more than likely, to defeat capitalism. But here's the thing. Ironically, we have somebody who, I will once again go out on a limb and say this, but I am fully convinced that Boris Johnson he's no longer conservative. He's basically a green communist. He is now fully in support of this eco-lunacy and COP26 and all that bollocks. I will willingly put my head on the block for it. And of course, if I do my research later and find out that I'm wrong, I'll admit my mistakes again. I'm not afraid to do that. I'm not afraid to swallow my own pride, as I've said before. But the mainstream media, they have a great deal of difficulty admitting their mistakes. The left wing also has a very, very bad track record of apologising, as in they don't. And I don't think Islam is going to apologise for their attacks either. Just a hunch. So I think I've made my point pretty clear, that these guys should be treated on the same class as terrorists, that it's a shame that David Perry is not being as heavily supported as he probably should be, considering he saved hundreds, maybe even thousands of lives by preventing this bomber from attacking a ceremony at it was a Remembrance Sunday ceremony at a cathedral, as well as the Queen's Hospital in Liverpool. Why is it that a man who risks his life, who is willing to, as I said, make the ultimate sacrifice and show the ultimate sign of patriotism, why is it a man like that is given peanuts compared to a boy who was not even waterboarded? A boy who literally only had a bottle of water poured on him. And I know this isn't water, it's Gatorade, but that's all that happened to the boy. To put it in context, he had a bottle poured over his face, and to imply it was waterboarding would mean the boy would have had to have something covering his face. I mean, it could be a flannel, it could be a towel. Hell, if I can bloody find it now, it could even be a mask, a face nappy. But it would have to imply that he was in a situation where he was in danger of drowning. The boy was not in danger of drowning. Let me simulate what happened. That's it. Whereas if it was waterboarding, there would likely be a jug of water, and it would be being poured on the person for an extended period of time, probably more like 15, 20, 30 seconds. And that boy was given over 100 grand. It might have even been 150 for all I know, if I can remember it correctly. My point is, surely a man who risked his life should be given more than a boy who basically was not as innocent, I believe, personally, as he claims to be, and that this man should have been getting the 150k and not this boy. The boy shouldn't have even gotten a fucking penny, personally, and yet he's getting more money from the court case that he won because the judge decided to ignore his evidence. I know I'm going off on a tangent here, but I have to say these things because it does, to some degree, correlate to what's going on here. It does basically portray how multiculturalism and diversity has failed. How equality only seems to apply to the left wing, or anybody who isn't perceived by the media as even remotely slightly right. It's a shame that we live in a country where the white British person is treated inferiorly, if that's even a word, but they're treated with inferiority compared to other races that come and live over here and integrate with our society. What say you, government? What say you, mainstream media? What say you, British police? If it were down to me, this man would have been knighted on the spot. David Perry, that is. He would have been given probably a large grant as a reward for saving his fellow countrymen and women. And he would have, if he had any crimes, which I know he doesn't, but just in case, I would probably even give him an official pardon. But of course I'm not the Queen or King, and I'm not the Prime Minister. But unfortunately, it goes to show how skewed the British people's priorities are, how skewed the police's priorities are, how skewed the government's priorities are, and how skewed our mainstream media are as a whole. What will it take for people to take the red pill and wake up? What will it take to show these guys the woke nature of our establishment? What will it take for these sheeple to realise they're being led by a blind shepherd off a cliff instead of back into a pen at the very least, where they could at least graze off as much grass as they'd like, or frolic in the fields or what have you? Unfortunately, we don't have that luxury. We live in a post-free speech era with crooked politicians, police and media. And the way I look at it is this. We have got to root out that cancer and destroy it once and for all. I've said it before, I'll say it again. If we don't remove the cancer, our country's going to die. It's as simple as that. Though to be fair, I should be thankful it's even lasted this fucking long. Because I'm willing to bet another country would have died earlier. But we should always hold them to account at the very least. We should show them that we, the British people, are not going to be tolerating being treated like idiots anymore. We're not going to be tolerating being treated like doormats. We're not going to tolerate our liberties being taken away. We are not going to tolerate being forced to take the poison XIX antidote just so that we can have the privilege of living our day-to-day lives. Because that's where we're heading. We need to fight back against the establishment. Because if we don't, we'll lose all our rights, we'll lose our voice, we'll lose our ability to help ourselves, and this country will ultimately succumb to the corruption of our establishment. My name's Dabima, also known as Abatha X, and I am, as always, very, very bad news for these crooked people in the media, the corrupt police, the crooked politicians, the Insulate Britain terrorists, and of course the so-called religion of peace, which continues to act like a parasite attached to the neck of Britain, leeching our blood and our vital resources for their own agenda to assimilate everyone. Thank you very much for watching, and have a wonderful day.